Good morning, everyone. I thought I'd do a talk today on what is true theosophy. I was going to do one on the Theosophical Masters, Buddha and Buddhism, but I decided to do this instead, as it gives a very basic introduction to what theosophy is all about. So let's get our minds prepared by breathing out and relaxing nicely. It's always a nice way to start, to get our minds calm and tranquil. Just breathe out any tension. Relax. In a lovely Zen garden. So, the word theosophy is derived from two Greek words, theo, divine, and sophia, wisdom. So its rough translation is divine wisdom, or wisdom of the gods, but not God, as we, in general, do not accept an external God that lives on a cloud somewhere. Our God is in everything, or divinity is in everything. There's a Zen tale concerning a student who asked the master, "What is truth?" And the master replied, "Cow dung." What he was trying to convey was that divinity is present in everything, not just the things we regard as being beautiful. Although it is obviously present to a greater degree in those things, and it is certainly easier to see it in them, but still it is in everything, everything. Plotinus or Plotinus had a wonderful, which is a Greek Neoplatonist, had a wonderful idea that the more we attune ourselves to the beauty at the heart of all things, the more it takes us in hand and molds us in its image, so that we are shot through with beauty and with love. The statement by the Zen master that the truth was in cow dung was also designed to shock the student out of any preconceived ideas. Preconceived ideas need to be shattered to see the truth behind them. We are generally very much the product of the education system and the media. So we need to get to a state where we act spontaneously from our spiritual center. And this is a kind of spiritual anarchy. Anarchy being means without any rule, without material governmental rule, in which each man and woman lives in the light of their divine nature. Everyone different, but with the same inspiration, which makes for harmony and not discord, as logic would have us believe. But logic is misleading. So theosophy agrees with this, and also the fact that the way to truth lies within and not externally. The word theosophy was not invented by the modern theosophists, but is said to have been first used by the Neoplatonists in the early centuries AD. And this school consisted of some fantastic scholars like Plotinus, Porphyry, Ammonius Saccas, Iamblichus. So many people and groups throughout the ages can be called strictly or roughly theosophical. Paracelsus used the word. The Rosicrucians have theosophical beliefs. So do Masons. The Comte de Saint-Germain was said to be a member of the same brotherhood who founded the Theosophical Society and the Order of the Golden Dawn. So now some points concerning HPVs or HP Blavatsky's life. I've gone through this in a previous talk, so I won't go too much into it. The modern movement then was founded by a woman called Helena Petrovna Blavatsky. She was born in Russia, or more accurately, the Ukraine, in 1831, to an aristocratic family, and from an early age had psychic powers. They were largely uncontrolled as a child, but eventually she did learn to control them. Also, she was obviously marked out for the task ahead, as on many occasions she received help from her master. Once when she fell from her horse, it was recorded that a hand was seen to catch her. Incidentally, an example of her nonconformist nature was shown by the fact that she refused to ride side saddle, as women had to do in those days. Doesn't seem like anything now, but it was a major thing in those days. Another example was that when she was about 15, a governess said that she was so awkward that no one would ever marry her, not even the old man, Colonel Blavatsky, old enough to be her grandfather. So just to prove the governess wrong, she got the old man to propose, and they were married. Mind you, she soon realised her mistake and ran away to travel the world in search of occult knowledge. She had many adventures, good and bad, with Native Americans, shamans, voodoo priests, yogis, fakirs, wise men and women, which are documented in the books on her life. She also spent a total of 7 years in Tibet, not consecutive, but a total, studying under the masters who were to become her guides and co-workers for the rest of her life. Eventually, on the 17th of November 1875, the Theosophical Society was founded in New York. It had a rough ride in the early days from the Christian missionaries, in particular, who tried to fabricate tales concerning HP Blavatsky's immorality and faking letters from the masters, etc. The Society for Psychical Research was sent in and did a very shabby investigation, which decided that HP Blavatsky had faked some things, but recently they refuted the evidence and proved HP Blavatsky right. The reason that the Christians hated her so much is that she stated that the Christian church and its hypocrisy. She slated the Christian church and its hypocrisy and denounced the priesthood, trying to show us that we are our own saviors and we don't need intermediaries. This didn't go down well, as it still doesn't. The thing was that H.P. Blavatsky told people what she thought to their faces, and none of us like that, if we are honest. We all prefer pleasant lies, to unpleasant truths. We are all children of our age, no matter how much we try not to be. So H.P. Blavatsky produced many articles and books, including The Secret Doctrine, Arches Unveiled, The Voice of the Silence, The Key to Theosophy, under the guidance and inspiration of the Theosophical masters known to the profane as K.H. Kutumi and M. Moria, though they had different names to their colleagues. She died on the 8th of May, 1891 in London. So here are some basic theosophical teachings. Reincarnation and karma are accepted by most theosophists, though nothing is put forward as dogma. And we have had many members who keep an open mind or don't accept these ideas at all. There's no dogma in the Theosophical Society, or shouldn't be. And so we have Buddhists, Hindus, Christians, Muslims, pagans, agnostics. As long as these people are willing to accept the brotherhood of all living things and the fact that the inner truth of all religions is the same, they are accepted. Only bigots are frowned upon. Personally, reincarnation is totally logical. I accepted it from being a child and before I'd learned of Theosophy in this life. I remember when I was about 11, I was on a cross-country run at school, and as usual, dropped behind so I could have a stroll along the canal. Thought came to me, if our bodies die, then why should our minds? It seems like a silly thought now, but then it was a major catalyst in my life. Previous to that, at primary school, I'd avoided PE, which I didn't like at all. I never liked physical exercise. To write stories about UFOs, ghosts, and vampires. So from the beginning, we had this interest in the occult, although in a lower way to start off with. I think the reason that the majority of people in the West don't accept reincarnation is due to the fact that we have lost contact with nature. Everything in nature is cyclic, the seasons, day and night, waking and sleeping. We are as much a product of nature as a tree or a flower, or a bird or an animal. So it seems logical that we too follow the cyclic law and come back again in another body. It seems illogical that we don't. But the world is so engrossed in materiality and money making that it thinks itself separate from nature and invents its own fantasy rules for living whether it be in politics, in society, or religion. Karma is generally designated as a law of cause and effect. Nature, inner and outer, is harmonious. The center of the universe is harmony. Imagine it to be a still lake. If we disturb the harmony of this lake by throwing a stone into the water, then we create ripples. Calmness is only restored by the ripples converging on the point of disturbance. In the universal astral ocean, any ripples caused by the individual or collectively against this harmony will result in a reaction against us as the harmony attempts to restore itself. Again, this shows that the teachings of Theosophy are not invented, but are scientific in the true sense of the word. Truths have to be tested by personal experience, and nothing is accepted just on blind faith. Logic shows that as we are all interrelated, there's not just an individual karma, but the karma of our family, town, country, planet, solar system, and even universe, perhaps, that we are all caught up in. The Secret Doctrine in general is regarded as the main theosophical book for study. Personally, it's not my favourite book, but I admit that it is the most useful to study, and that everything we wish to know is in it. So it's based basically on the three fundamental propositions. And the first of these fundamental propositions is an omnipresent, eternal, boundless, and immutable principle on which all speculation is impossible, since it transcends the power of human conception and could be only dwarfed by any human expression or similitude. So this is the teaching in all true religions of the world, of a reality beyond thought or speculation, something that has to be experienced to become real. It cannot be thought of or expressed. The Tao Te Ching, a book of Chinese philosophy by Lao Tzu, says that the Tao that can be expressed is not the real Tao. The Tao that can be expressed is the mother of all things, which means its manifestations. We can have a glimpse of relative truth through nature, but the ultimate reality is beyond all thought. The second proposition is the eternity of the universe in toto as a boundless plane, periodically the playground of numberless universes incessantly manifesting and disappearing, called the manifesting stars and the sparks of eternity. The eternity of the pilgrim is like a wink of the eye of self-existence. The appearance and disappearance of worlds is like a regular tidal ebb of flux and reflux. This is to do with what I mentioned earlier regarding cycles of life. It also says that our whole string of lives is just like a wink of the eye in the scale of things. It's like a wink of the eye in the scale of things. So that gives us plenty to think about. Even the universe is really just a blink of the eye at another level. Think around this. So the third fundamental proposition is the fundamental identity of all souls with the universal oversoul, the latter being itself an aspect of the unknown root, and the obligatory pilgrimage of every soul, a spark of the former, through the cycle of incarnation or necessity, in accordance with cyclic and karmic law, during the whole term. In other words, no purely spiritual Buddhi or divine soul can have an independent conscious existence before the spark of which issued from the pure essence of the universal sixth principle, or the oversoul, as A passed through every elemental form of the phenomenal world of the Manvantara, and B acquired individuality first by natural impulse and then by self-induced and self-devised efforts, checked by its karma, thus ascending through all the degrees of intelligence from the lowest to the highest manas. Manas is another name for the mind, the mental principle, from mineral and plant up to the holiest archangel or Jnani Chohan. The pivotal doctrine of the esoteric philosophy admits no privileges or special gifts in man, save those won by his own ego through personal effort and merit through a long series of metempsychosis and reincarnations. So this is now giving us esoteric teaching found in many places in Eastern and Western teaching, that consciousness requires a more and more refined vehicle for expression. Theosophy teaches that there is no dead matter, that everything is alive to a greater or lesser extent. Consciousness starts off in the elemental and mineral kingdoms, which have very limited awareness. Then when more expression is needed, it moves into the plant kingdom, until still more expression is required, then into the animal, through all the grades of animal, and then into the human, where self-consciousness is finally reached. This is why it is called the pivotal doctrine, because the stage of humanity is when self-consciousness is developed, and we can proceed by self-induced and self-devised methods or efforts. From the human, we move onwards to other states of angelic beings, the Jian Chuans. But the ultimate end is to return from whence we came, plus this self-consciousness. I find that a human being inhabiting this body, I find that as a human being inhabiting this body, I have this longing or urge to express myself all the time, and sort of get frustrated if I can't. Well, this desire to express ourselves is the guiding light. It is a true meaning of the word eros, which in its highest sense is a longing to create something beautiful. And the theosophical interpretation of meditation is the inexpressible yearning of the inner man or woman to go out towards the infinite. So Theosophy accepts other lives, such as angels and fairies, but believes that man and woman can develop themselves to a vastly superior state of consciousness, and so no reliance is put on such matters. Theosophy also teaches that we live on 7 states of being simultaneously. We have 7 bodies that correspond to the 7 colours of the rainbow, or the 7 basic musical notes. 7 is the magic number. We have a physical body, an astral, a desire body, a lower mind, a higher mind, an intuitive body or buddhi, and a spirit. This is a very basic summary, but we are linked to everything else in the world, and the universe by these correspondences. All is one. The 6 are really different expressions of the 7th, which is pure spirit. Now, the Theosophical Society has 3 objects, which are: 1, to form a universal, or the nucleus of a universal brotherhood of sisterhood of humanity, regardless of race, creed, sex, caste, or colour. 2nd, to study comparative religion, philosophy, and science. And 3rd, to study the unexplained spiritual powers latent in man. Now, the first, the universal brotherhood or sisterhood, is based upon the fact that we are all one in spirit. It has nothing to do with a political or social brotherhood, as Theosophy never gets involved with politics. It is concerned with the soul and placing oneself under the guidance of the higher self, and politics are concerned with material goals and aims. It is the higher self and it is about individuality and following one's own chosen path in life. If people could only see that organized religions are hindrances instead of helps, then barriers would dissolve and we would be able to live the reality. And this oneness is the basis of all true theosophy. We also encourage the study of comparative religion, philosophy, and science to help to prove this oneness. We try to show that behind all religions there is one truth, though expressed in different ways as a result of our culture and time. Obviously, the cultures of Ireland and Japan are completely different, and externally things will be explained differently, but inwardly all is one. Also, we believe in research into the spiritual powers in man, latent in man and woman, not so much the psychic or the lower psychic, which are just a deeper form of materialism and are attached to the personal self, which we regard as essential to gain experience, but ultimately transitory. Anyone who subscribes to one of these 3 objects is welcome to join the society, as long as the results of their work are used to help humanity in some way, or other, as this is the reason that society was founded by the masters. So the universal brotherhood is the really essential one. If one is not interested in this ideal, then there are other organizations and groups to join, or one can merely proceed by oneself. But we believe there is strength in unity. And our motto is, there is no religion higher than truth. So in conclusion, I must say that Theosophy is nothing new. It is just a restatement of facts known in all cultures and climes throughout history. The unique thing about Theosophy and modern Theosophy is that most of these teachings have been reserved for the chosen few, until some of the custodians of these teachings in the Himalayas had decided, due to the deterioration of society at the time, that they would release a few to the general public. But even they in the end were not encouraged by the results of their efforts. Many of the facts given out in the early days of the society have subsequently been proven by science or by teachings being discovered or released by their guardians. Many still remain unique to us, but the fact of the verification of some would lead us to believe logically that others are correct. There are, of course, many centres of occult learning in the world, including Europe and the West. The reason that there are more in the East is because Eastern civilizations are many thousands of years older than the Western. When we were living in caves, they had advanced civilizations and even used flying machines and devices activated by the power of the mind. So it is not surprising that the East is rich in esoteric lore, even though it is on the decline at the moment, or it seems to be. Just cycles. As we in the West are still in our infancy, there's a great opportunity for us all to take time by the forelock and help to spiritualize our country so that it may be raised to heights achieved by the East in the past. It's up to us all to do our bit to bring about a golden age of light and love in this very country. Obviously, the outer body of the teachings will be different here as a result of our culture, but the inner truth must always be the same, and that is that we are all divine. We are never weak, miserable sinners, as the Christian Church tried to make us think, but we are all creatures of light, children of the light, if you wish. Personally, I have less and less time for concepts and ideas. The whole thing is to live in the one reality, the one light, the original pure mind. We all have it and can access it easily. We think that we can't, so we erect conceptual barriers all the time. Once we dissolve all these, we can come together as truly human beings. I was recently listening, a long time ago now actually, to a CD that I bought of 2 talks by the Maharishi, who founded the Transcendental Meditation movement and taught the Beatles and other people in the late 60s. These were talks delivered in 1967 at the height of the flower power movement, which is a way of thought that influenced me, well, even physically, as I shortly afterwards became a gardener and worked at that for 20 years. In these talks, a couple of points, which I had read many times before from different sources, were restated. One is that everything that we do, think and feel affects the whole universe instantaneously, because we are all one. And the other is that love is everything. This last one sounds very flower powerish, but what it means scientifically is that the universe is based upon harmony. Only mankind disturbs that harmony, but as everything is one inwardly, we also have all the powers that exist in the universe. In us as individuals, harmony manifests as love. The Maharishi also says that abstract universal love is made concrete in the human heart, that we are the conscious expressions of love. We can wield the power of love to transform the hearts and minds of all things positively. All you need is love. Love is all that is. All true magic is based upon love or affinity, as it may be called, in one of its incarnations. And Theosophy also has detailed teachings regarding the after-death states given by the masters. She said that when we die, we first shed our physical bodies and then spend some time on the astral plane, shedding our astral body before we pass on to Devachan. So we have two deaths. And Devachan is the land of the gods, which is a heaven world of our own creating. It is a perfect world, but somewhat of a fool's paradise, as we can have whatever we want there. For example, an Orthodox Christian would actually live in the kind of heaven he or she believed in, because it is all mind created. This would go on for some time. It's said to be for an average of 1,500 years. So that is an average. In some cases, it could be 15 years, or even days, maybe. And in some cases, 15,000 years, maybe. Eventually, this stay in Devachan is exhausted, and karma, unfortunately, brings us back to Earth to learn more lessons until he or she has lost all desire for life on Earth. And then they will move on to other spheres of activity and perhaps other planets. While this process is going on, the astral form continues to rot on the astral plane. And it is this that can be contacted by most mediums, who consider it to be the spirit of the deceased. This is why the average mediumistic message is trite, like "don't forget to put the cat out tonight," or some other things. And this is the general rule. There are exceptions. Suicides and victims of violent death are earthbound until their natural life course would have been up. For example, if someone was destined to die at the age of 70 and they have a violent death at 30, they remain earthbound for 40 years before moving on. It may be that someone is held to earth by some strong desire for much longer, even centuries, and therefore cannot move on until this desire is dissolved or resolved. That may be one explanation for ghosts. Also, beings involved in evil practices also function on the astral and can influence others. They also may become vampires, whether psychic or otherwise. After centuries, these particular beings who have lost touch with their spiritual selves enter the mysterious eighth sphere and are heard of no more. And Theosophy also teaches the difference between the individuality and the personality. The ancient Greeks also knew this, as the word personality is derived from the word persona, which means a mask. So they knew it was masking something. The individuality is the real man or woman that does not change from life to life, and even in between lives. As Shakespeare puts it, we are like actors on a stage. The parts we play are our personalities, and the actor is our true self, which is always the same when we leave the stage. It is also known as the Sutratama, or the thread soul, because it runs like a golden thread through all our lives, which are like pearls strung along that thread. The individuality is the I-ness that makes us think we are who we are and no one else. But even this is an illusion in the end that will pass in time when we are merged into the one life force that permeates the universe. Until then, we have this unbroken stream of consciousness that is the I, that does not change and can be easily experienced through meditation and deep thought. As we grow older, we can feel that there is a part of us that does not change despite the aging of our physical self. And this is the real self. It is a symbolic meaning of drinking from the fount of eternal youth. So thank you for that. I hope you enjoyed that. It's a talk I wrote some time ago, just about the basic I thought it was nice to put the basic teachings in case people are a little bit unclear. But these are the basic, more technical teachings of Theosophy, really. And of course, a deeper dimension to the teachings, a much deeper dimension that's beyond all the conceptions, words, images, and thoughts. We must be aware of that as well. So thank you all for listening. Om Shanti, 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 peace, 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 peace on earth and goodwill to all beings.